Alrighty. Welcome back to another episode of the Little Grain Podcast.
Welcome back, babe.
Welcome back.
So weird calling you babe because I don't think I really called you babe.
No, we go by Honey.
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 I do have to say that I love when Mia calls you, like when Mia says, hi, daddy, or just calls you. And you're always like, hi, honey. Like, it just sounds so beautiful. It's so cute.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, that's kind of like what my dad would use, and my mom as well.
To you guys?
Yeah, he would say like, oh, like just
Oh.
use honey as like a,
Like, hey, honey.
yeah.
When
like
you
a
guys were
term.
little? Because I don't think I've ever heard you.
Like
heard
when we
him
were
call-
little,
Okay.
and he used it with my mom, so it was like something I always like kind of grew up with, and I liked it. I don't know. It
Yeah.
reminded me
No,
of
it's cute.
simpler times.
I've heard him say honey, I think, to Veronica, but not you.
No, but it was probably when I was younger. I was younger.
Oh, he just doesn't like you.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I know I'm not his favorite.
No, you're kidding.
I know.
Or am I kidding? No, I'm just kidding. I think not to, and we can, I think we should have an episode about that, like favoritism and stuff. But I don't, now that I have a kid, I don't think that there's such a thing as having favorites. But I do think that sometimes through different periods of your life, you tend to gravitate towards maybe a child. And I won't know that until Mia gets older and if we have a second. Because if we just have Mia, then there's no point.
Sure. I mean, my mom always put it is like with us, she loves us all, and it's always not. It's like not in the same ways, you know. Like she likes hanging out with me in different ways than she likes hanging out with Stefan and Veronica, and just the ways we interact with her. I think she loves the differences,
Mhm.
and I think that's why you don't really have favorites when you have kids. Is like you like them because they are different in a
Although
way.
I do got to say that growing up, there are moments, at least in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
there were moments where I definitely felt like there were some favoritism.
Like your
happening.
parents
Mhm.
were having favoritism towards,
Not me,
towards particular daughters.
my older sister.
For
sure. And she might deny it and say no. But I think my other two sisters would agree with me. So then that means that 3 against 1, we win. But now
it
now that I'm a
happens.
grown up, and again, I think it would be a really good episode to talk about this some other time. But now that I'm a grown up, I understand why, and we can get into that maybe even some other time,
Yeah,
or maybe this one later on. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been. I feel like every week we say it's been a crazy week, but it kind of feels a little slower this week, which is good. I feel like the past month has been just kind of crazy.
Mhm.
Just
August in general.
just
Today's
August.
last day of August.
Last day of August. I mean, work's been very slow, which has been kind of a headache financially just because I haven't been getting a lot of hours. I rear-ended someone, which was a total like...
Yeah, you talked about that in like...
Yeah, but it's
2
like,
episodes ago.
it's all part of like this month where it was like, it just feels like one thing after the other.
Yeah.
And so it kind of feels good. I feel like things are kind of flipping around. It kind of feels like there's a new horizon coming. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. So I feel all right. I feel good. I woke up early. I had work this morning. I had to be at work at 6, so I woke up at 5. And it's funny. I woke up and Sandra woke up and was like, "Where are you going?" As if I
No.
was
said,
I was
"What are
gonna
you
meet my
doing?"
mistress.
I said, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? And I was like, it's 5. I have to get ready for work. And she was like, oh. And then went back to sleep.
No, okay, in my perspective. So last night I was going like you put me into bed
Yeah.
and I stayed up to clean, do
Yeah.
the dishes and kind of organize. And then I had a moment of just like a lot of anxiety, which I'll tell you why in a second. But I didn't go to bed.
Did you think I was cheating?
Oh my gosh, no. No, I didn't have a weird
No.
dream.
No.
No, it wasn't that. It was I went to bed kind of late. Like it was almost like no, it was already midnight by the time I was in bed,
Mm.
tucked in. And Mia surprisingly didn't wake up.
Yeah, she was really good
In the
last
past couple of days, she's been waking up like around 2, around 4, And by like she'll wake up and like go on her crib and just look at us and start being like, "Mom."
She'll like cry at us.
Yeah, to because she wants to come in
She's
bed
like,
with us.
"Mama, da 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 da."
So last night she didn't do that. And when you got up, I thought, because you got up and you went straight to the dog, grabbed Lucia, took her out, and I was like, oh, maybe Lucia was crying and I didn't hear her. Maybe she wanted to
Mhm.
go pee. So when you came back in, I heard you like opening the dresser, like the drawers and stuff from the
Mhm.
dresser, and I was like, what the hell is he doing? I was like, did he shit himself? Like, like why is he? Because then I heard you coming into the bathroom, right?
Honey, I had another accident.
um, so when I turned around, I legitimately thought it was like 3 a.m.
Oh.
So I was like, "What are you doing? Like, what's happening? Well, go to freaking bed." And then you're like, "I'm getting ready for work," and I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind." So I
So, well,
passed out.
no, I woke up. Um, I remember I woke up at like 4:45, and I always do this because I set an alarm, and sometimes my alarm will wake me up, but usually I'll wake up like 15
I didn't hear
minutes.
your alarm.
No, I sometimes wake up to the alarm, or I will wake 15 to 20 minutes before the alarm because I'm anticipating it. So I'll just wake up and I'll look at it and I'll turn it off because I don't want to wake everyone
I think
up.
that's my dad.
Yeah, and so then I'll like lay in bed for like another 15 minutes, but I don't go to sleep. That's also, I know this is such a sidetrack, but that's also another thing that I hate about myself is that when I'm stressed out or when I know like there's going to be a stressful day the next day, it's so hard for me to fall asleep. And for like hours, I will just lay there with my eyes closed and I will not be able to fall asleep. And it sucks.
I feel like that's gonna be me tonight.
Yeah.
So okay, so this actually is a good.
What?
I hold on, because
Oh,
the reason why I was having anxiety last night.
oh, you're going to explain. Okay, because I wanted to explain like me getting up. But
Oh, okay. Sorry, sorry,
no, no,
sorry.
no,
Go,
no,
go,
no.
go.
Explain your anxiety. Explain
No,
the
the reason
anxiety.
why I was having anxiety last night was because I'm leaving on a trip with my
Hmm.
sisters
To
and my cousin
Hawaii.
to Hawaii. And it's my first trip just without Mia.
Hmm.
My first night without Mia. Like this is gonna be
Yeah.
my first thing without Mia. Like ever since Mia was able to stay with me after the NICU,
Hmm.
I've never been separated from her.
Yeah.
I've been attached to her. Like and like every night, I
It's
see her
going to be a wee bit stressful
for you.
for me. I'm not going to sleep this weekend,
So
which
I
is
have
fine.
anxiety over a lot of things. One of them is obviously leaving her
Yeah.
and not knowing what's happening with her.
Hmm.
But that's like I kind of deal with that like a daycare. Like I don't know exactly what's going on, but you know what I mean?
Hmm.
With you, I trust you and I know you're going to take care of her um as best as you can.
Yeah. Well, I
You
mean,
better take good care of her.
I feel like I'm pretty confident. I mean, honestly, you're leaving Friday, coming back Sunday. It's not a long
Yeah,
trip.
it's a very like literally
It's literally a weekend trip. And I think I can handle it. I think it's going to be okay. I mean, and my mom's coming this weekend to help me out on Saturday, Sunday.
yeah.
So I think it's going to be okay.
But the other reason why I'm experiencing anxiety over it is because I just, I love to be in control and I'm not going to be in control. And I think the night portion of it is the scariest for me
Hmm.
because I I don't want her to cry. I don't want you to not be able to sleep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um and I'm also like sad.
Hmm.
Like I have FOMO in a backwards way because I'm fearing that I'm going to miss out on something that she does that's new.
Mm.
And I never like the other day I was thinking about how I might miss like we might miss her first steps because what if she takes her first steps at daycare and like that
Hmm.
hurts me a lot. And so I've been trying to make her walk so I can see her first steps here.
It's like I want you to what's it called? Um, have your milestones here and now.
Yeah. And then the other part of it too is like I know I'm going to be in Hawaii and I'm going to be like Mia loves the water. She
Yeah.
genuinely loves water. And she's also very like I've been saying this on Instagram and then I've been saying to my friends how Mia is so just observant. She takes everything in. Like when we took her to the aquarium, like we went around like 3 times just so she could see all the fishies because she was obsessed with like enthralled with everything and also
Hmm.
all her surroundings.
Yeah.
And like she's just so observant. She takes everything in and she's so reactive to things. She'll like on walk, she'll be like pointing at things.
Yeah,
And
when we went to the SF aquarium, was it the
mhm,
San Francisco Bay Aquarium?
mhm.
She was enthralled by the fish. Like
Yeah.
we would walk through the tunnels that are there, and she'd be just like Daddy, as if like she's pointing and showing me like look at all the things going on.
Yeah, exactly. So like I live for that.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely had a great birthday and like maybe a lot of people would say like really did that for your 30th birthday and like that sounds boring, but I loved it because
Hmm.
I knew that she was going to enjoy it and me watching her
Hmm.
enjoy something is like my like I love that.
Yeah.
I'm like just
I mean, I also hope that you enjoy the trip. I feel like I understand where you're coming from. I really do. But I also feel like this trip is important for you to be a little separate and to be with your sisters and to get out of the norm and have a relax, because you, like I said, you've never been separated from her. So it's like,
yeah.
you are you about to cry?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Only
Honey,
because
it's
I'm
okay.
emotional about it.
I know, but it's going to be okay. And it's going to go by so quick. I swear it is.
I know it's going to be quick and I'm also getting emotional because I do know I need this for myself. Like I know I need that.
You
But you
do.
know what's crazy? That I feel like I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
I am like incredibly lucky that I have a partner like you who like I generally don't feel nervous about you taking care of her. I
Hmm.
know you're going to do a good job. I know your mom is going to, you know, help you. And like I'm not necessarily nervous. Obviously there's like a teeny bit nerves around
Of
that, but
course, of course.
not overly nervous about that. But I just think about like my mom and how she never got that for herself.
Yeah.
And like that makes me emotional because I feel very lucky. Like she even called me and said, does Charlie need help? Like I can go help him. And like that just felt really nice. And like also hearing it from your mom to be like, oh my God, I hope you have so much fun in Hawaii.
Hmm.
Please enjoy yourself. And then like, um, when we had talked to your dad and Nancy that I was going to go to Hawaii, Nancy was so very like, you need it. And it just, you just, I don't know, I felt really supported.
Yeah, you
But
almost
I,
feel validated for the choices that you're making. Like, oh, this isn't good for me.
yeah,
This is good.
and the choice originally when I decided to go to Hawaii was in that I was gonna go by myself. I was thinking I was gonna take her with me, and then it
Hmm.
became where it was like you told me like no, leave her with me.
Yeah.
I can handle it. Go take this moment to also be with your sisters,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna enjoy myself. I know I am,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna try my hardest to enjoy myself. Am I gonna be like in the middle of the night waking up and checking the camera to just check her on her crib? Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that because I'm a creep and like I like watching her sleep. But that part I can't control.
That's okay. And it's going to be okay. And you have the access to the camera. I just think, like, everyone's been telling you, it's a good idea to take this trip. It's a short trip. You get some separation, you get time to just be by yourself, and then you come back refreshed and ready to go, you know? So it's going to be good. Going back to this morning, I woke up at 5. I did not want to, but I woke up and I didn't go right to Lou. I went to straight to the dresser and I pulled out my clothing that I needed.
Oh, so
But
like
the
half
thing is,
asleep.
I did eventually go to her and take her out of her cage and bring her outside, because you know what happened when I walked past her, she went,
Oh.
she like did a sigh, which
Mhm.
I know means I need to pee or
Mhm.
something's wrong.
Mhm.
Like she'll either whimper, she'll claw at the cage, or she'll sigh. So when she sighed, I was like, okay, she needs to go to the bathroom.
And
But
does she?
yeah. So I took out my clothes, I took a shower, I got ready, and when I came back, there was enough time for me to take her out and put her outside, and she went to the bathroom. But this girl takes forever. She'll like go to the bathroom and then sniff for like 15 minutes. I'm like, hurry up! I
Especially
have things to do.
I think whenever we take her out right in the morning or late at night, she will sniff around. And I think it's because it smells more like the outdoor smell a little bit more.
Yeah, she's like just sniffing around because I mean, there's animals, there's squirrels. I think there's possums that are out there, and so she smells them, and so she's just investigating. But at some times, especially late at night or early in the morning, I'm like, we got shit to do. Like, we need to go to bed, or I
Yeah.
need to go. There's
Yeah.
no time.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna take her on a walk when we pick up Mies.
Maybe if it's not too hot outside.
I mean, it's overcast.
It's overcast because I think the air quality is not good. So maybe we shouldn't.
So
I'll
then
check.
yeah,
I'll
okay.
check.
You know, if not, then we'll just pick her up.
I'll check.
But yeah, that was this morning. I'm feeling good. You know, it feels like a really good day. So
So far.
so far it feels
I
really
I
good.
have a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
I finished everything. Well, actually, I didn't finish everything I needed to do for work. I'm probably gonna do some work late at night tonight, just to kind of feel like I'm at a good spot before I leave. But I still need to pack.
There's a lot to do.
I wanted to prep some meals for Mia, which I don't think I'm gonna have time, but
That's fine.
I'll
I'll figure it
just
out. I'll figure it out.
yeah. I'll give you like a list of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff that I think I need to get ready for her. But today
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast, I wanted to bring up a topic that I think we've been talking about for the past couple of days. And it just really, and not just with you, but I think I've been talking about it with your mom. I've been talking about it with my sister. It's been a topic of conversation with even my mom in the past couple of months, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about generational trauma, but more so generational healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when we talked about, like yesterday, when we talked about using the word trauma, I think we're so,
Well, we didn't say it on the pod. We said it. Did we say it on the pod?
no, we
It,
were having a
it was
conversation.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
We,
we were well.
we were
Continue,
talking
continue,
about
continue.
trauma and we were talking about how reluctant we sometimes feel to even use the word trauma because we
Yes.
don't feel like our trauma is really trauma
Y-
or we feel like it's overuse.
that's the thing that I was talking about with you was that I just feel like sometimes we overuse a word as almost a catch-all for everything, and when we do that, then I feel like it dilutes the word, and then it doesn't feel as like impactful when you use it.
But
Not to say that not everything is, trauma or whatever that word would be.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because I think we think of trauma like these big things that need to
Mhm.
happen to our lives that like you even mentioned yesterday, like how yeah, we're not in a war torn country or dealing with like that's trauma. And I'm like, yes, obviously that's like the obvious trauma, but a lot of the things that are happening in our lives that we've been affected by are also considered trauma. And I think we grew up not acknowledging that they were, you know,
I feel like the way I was trying to take it was when people use it in common vernacular, like the example I used yesterday was like someone, gives you an attitude or yells at you at a store, and someone says, "Oh my god, I'm traumatized." And it's like that is what dilutes it. What you're saying is correct. We do sometimes think it has to be this huge thing in order for it to be trauma when doesn't necessarily have to be. But think sometimes we use the word in a way where it's like it's overused all the time for any sort of incident that might be like out of the norm or something like that. Where, maybe it isn't trauma, but
mhm,
generational trauma in terms of like what you get from your parents, like
mhm.
growing up, that sort of thing, that is a real thing. And I think you and I have experienced that in some way, shape, or form. And I think a lot of us have experienced it, but we've never had a real word to put to it, you know?
Yeah. And I think I was talking to my sister about this yesterday because eh, I saw this post that talked about the immigrant generational trauma, right? That families go through. But I think it does go beyond having immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in your case, you don't necessarily have immigrant parents, but you do have immigrant grandparents,
Yeah.
which then it does translate because obviously it um, trickled down.
Well, technically, my mother was
Right, your mom.
born in
That's
Colombia.
true. That's true. So your mom is considered an immigrant parent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, my parents and myself, were immigrants to this country,
Yeah.
and it was so interesting because I read this post yesterday about how older generations didn't really have the capacity, whether it was like they didn't have the money to pay to get therapy, or it was just not really like as accessible as it
Hmm.
is now. It's not as like now it's seen as a good thing if you're like, I'm in therapy. But for our parents and our grandparents, going to therapy meant something was really wrong with you and you were probably going crazy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of shunned
Yeah.
upon to say that you were going through like through therapy. Now I think that because things have changed a bit and now we have our generation has kind of been like, yeah, more open about going to therapy and more open about how mental health is important.
Hmm.
Um, Not only are we working on our own healing, but we're also kind of working on our parents' healing.
Yeah. I think a
Because
lot.
it's hard, sorry,
No, 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 no.
it's
Continue.
hard to heal yourself without having to also heal or try to not fix, because fix is not the right word. Obviously, that's hard. They have to go through their own place to heal, but without bringing up maybe what their trauma is, because obviously, like again, it's generational.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So before I let you talk, so thinking about all this, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because as new parents, I think it's really important to heal ourselves because I don't want to raise Mia with that. I want to break cycles,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying that I'm going to break every single one of them. And I'm not saying that Mia's not going to have her own set of, traumas in her life because then that would be
I mean, you can't protect them from the world.
exactly. But I do think that I do want to kind of be able to heal myself in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. So then it doesn't necessarily translate fully to her.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Did you want us to go into individual, like, per.
Well, I think for me, my question for you mostly is like, and I know it's personal, so I don't want to have you talk about something that you might be too vulnerable about. And I
No,
know
let's
that
get
there's some,
vulnerable. Let's get in there.
well, but there are some vulnerable stuff that I don't even think I'm ready to talk about. But
Mm.
there's some stuff that I'm okay talking about. And I
Well, I'm
want
willing
you
to
to
talk
tell
about.
me, like,
Yeah, I'm
if
willing
you're
to
okay
talk
with
about.
talking about some stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I'm interested in knowing about things that maybe you've noticed now as an adult or even now as a parent that looking back, you're like, shit, that was, that cost me for me to be this way. And that's kind of something that you might be working on still.
Yeah. I guess so. Growing up, um, I would say growing up, I had like a pretty average childhood, but in high school slash college, my parents did get divorced, and it was like a real like impactful thing for me. Not to say that obviously, lots of kids have divorced parents and stuff, and it's not an uncommon. It's not like a rare thing, but looking back, like I feel like growing up, I always tried to push it aside and tried to make it like, it's whatever, like, it happened, whatever. Let's move on. Let's move on from it. And I realized that, it did impact me. It was a very, again, I don't like using the word, but it was a very, I guess, traumatizing experience in the fact that it did shape my views and it did shape a lot of that time because it was during high school into college. And I think high school is a very formative time for a lot of kids. So dealing with that in the background, I remember I never wanted to like bring anyone over. I didn't want to like really tell anyone about what was going on. Like it was very much like this is happening and I'm not going to really talk about it, you know? It was funny because like people would say it's like, "Oh, Charles has like this like what like white picket fence atomic family sort of situation." And I would just never correct them and say like, "Well, actually like my parents are like they're fighting all the time. They're they're separating or whatever because they didn't finalize the divorce until like we were in college or until I was in college."
So your friends in high school didn't even know that your parents were
I
going
don't
through a
think so.
separation?
No, no, I never brought it up. It was just never something to
I
talk
didn't
about.
know that.
Yeah. I really didn't talk about a whole lot of that growing up just because I never wanted to deal with it. And I think the divorce also kind of like it attributed to my anxiety. Like I've always been like a very nervous person. Um, and it kind of attributed to that. Yeah, it was.
What was the most difficult part about like the divorce in those years?
I think there was like just this buildup. I remember like I was around 13 or 14, so probably freshman year of high school. That's probably freshman year or sophomore year.
13, 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I took a trip with my grandmother to Colombia, and prior to that, my parents were like fighting a lot. But there was a moment of like, oh, things are working out, and so I went to Colombia with my grandmother, and I had a great time. But no one told me what was happening at home. So I'm there for I'm there for like a month. Like I was there for a while. And I come back and like one of the first things I learn is like dad moved out of the house. And apparently my sister and my brother helped move him into his new place. Like there was this whole thing and it was kind of like a shock that I tried to brush off and not really make a big deal about.
Yeah, what did you say?
I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's what I said.
Really?
Yeah. Cuz I mean, it's like I didn't know what to do. I mean, what was I going to like protest or anything? Like it just felt like
But you know how
you know what it was? It was like I was just like, well, I guess all that like healing or like things that were getting better weren't getting better. And it sucked cuz my dad lived in this place that I don't think the people were bad, but he just didn't like living there, and it was like this place of depression. It was like very depressing to go there. And I felt bad cuz my little brother had to deal with it the most. So he had to like go between my mom and my dad all the time. And he wasn't a huge fan of going there. And me and my sister would sometimes accompany him, and obviously he liked when we came because at least we were there. But we didn't like going because it just felt depressing and sad, and I didn't like my dad being there. Obviously, when he moved out, he obviously got better and stuff, so it's not like it's still a thing. But it was a very like kind of mentally a hard time for us, and it just sucked.
how do you feel like I feel like I'm an interviewer like
No, yeah, no, go for it.
um how do you feel like the divorce affects you now?
Um, I think sometimes I say this with no ill will to the parties involved in the divorce. Like again,
To your parents?
to my parents. I have no ill will because I understand that, especially being married to you and having Mia, you don't understand how human your parents are until you grow up, until you have kids, until you get married, until you have life experiences that you're like, oh, they're humans. They're not just like mom and dad. The veil of parenthood is dropped, and you're like, oh, these are people who had ambitions and hopes and dreams that may have not worked out for them.
I think the moment when you figure out that your parents are not just mom and dad and they're humans and that they make mistakes and that they like again they had hopes and dreams and that they had to sacrifice things for you.
Yeah.
That's the moment that I think like I mean for me at least it hit me really hard and I was like I appreciated them like and I understood them.
Yeah, and I had that I had that moment when they were arguing like that, when they were doing that. So at a very young age, I had that moment where it's like, oh, they're just people, they're just like you and me or whatever. So it was just difficult. It was difficult to see them in that time. It was difficult to kind of like wrap my head around it. I kind of tried to disassociate from it a little bit. That's why I love video games because I felt like there was an escape. Uh, I didn't have to deal with anything. I could be in this little world, and it was fun. And it felt like I could just, kind of almost disassociate from that sort of thing. But I think going back because you asked
Now,
what's hard now. What's hard now is when people would say like, oh, that was like a different life, that was a different time, that's in the past, where the parties involved, obviously my parents or anyone's parents, to a degree you can wash your hands of it and move on, because unless you've come from divorced parents, you don't understand how much, like, my world is rocked from it. Like my dad, it's unfortunate, but my grandfather died when my dad was like 19, 17 or 19, something like that. So when he was very young, which is very unfortunate. Like, obviously, like, if you have a parent that passed, that's very hard. If you have anyone who's passed, that's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the understanding, like, it wasn't their choice. Like, no one, most people don't choose to die. Like, it's not necessarily, I don't want to say a common choice, but for the most part, if you're sick,
Well, in his case,
in his case, he had cancer, so you don't have a choice. Like, he didn't have a choice. Obviously, he would be here if he wanted to. But because of that, I think there's some solace in, like, this really sucks, but, hopefully he's always around. You pray, that sort of thing. But when a parent leaves, it feels like an active choice against you, where they chose to leave, you know? And I understand that has nothing to do with me. I've come to full circle. I don't struggle with this anymore. Like, this is very much like me having like a retrospective of everything, like kind of looking back. But it was difficult because it was like, you know, was it because of us? Like, you know, why weren't we enough? That sort of thing. Those questions pop up.
you brought up something the other day that really hit, like, it really broke my heart because you said, um, for your parents, they got divorced, and, like, in the case of your dad, obviously he still had his mom alive,
Mm-hmm.
like his family, his siblings, his mom.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
case of your mom, she still had her siblings and her parents still as a
exactly.
family. And for you three, there was no family because they were the family as a
Exactly.
unit.
And don't get me wrong, like, I understand, like, getting a divorce for the parents, it's not an easy thing. I'm sure that there are scars left over. I'm sure that there's animosity. I'm sure that there's, like, all these unspoken feelings that you would like to get off your chest. Like, I understand from the parents' perspective that it's still not easy. But you have to understand, for the children involved, it's like it's a total, like, the way I described it, it was like a shipwrecked, and me and my siblings held on to each other in the storm. And that's all we had. And obviously we have extended family. Obviously we have other role models, but it doesn't feel that way when they're not. Like, an aunt can only do so much in the aftermath of your parents getting divorced,
Mhm.
you know? If your parents died in an unfortunate way, there is solace, like, like, something happened to them, you know?
I think it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it guilt that you felt that maybe at some point you felt like you did something wrong and that's why they got divorced? Or is it more so
I don't
just
think
the
it's
choice that you're kind of
I don't think it's
fixated
guilt.
on?
No, I don't think it's guilt, because I don't think I had anything to do with it.
You didn't
Obviously,
feel guilty.
I didn't feel guilty. No. Uh but it's the choice. Like, and I understand sometimes there's inconsolable differences that can't be overcome, but,
When you're small, you don't think about that.
no, when you're small you think, well, if you love that person, you're going to try, right? So that's what I thought. And so it kind of felt like the choice was, I can't do this. I'm done.
It almost felt like it was just quitting.
Yeah, I was giving up, and it felt like, so you're giving up on us. And when it's your parents, it's like, oh, that feels awful. That feels terrible.
And now, kind of touching back to the whole how that relates to like generational trauma, and then obviously we're trying to heal from it.
Yeah.
When we first started dating, I think you were very like, I remember you saying, I don't think I want to get married.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to have kids.
Yeah, no, it was a big thing, because I never wanted to be put in a situation where I would have children that would go through that, even though I never planned on. I didn't even want to get married. Like, I just didn't want to
Although I'll
deal
be
with it.
honest, I don't think your parents married thinking that they were going to get divorced.
No, I don't think so. But I think there was a lot of things that occurred. Like, my mom had my sister very young, uh, and I think my
You just
father.
wanted to think it through.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And there was a lot of there was a lot of, I guess, like elements to it. Like my dad had the option to go to college, and I think it was like out of California or at least out of San Francisco. So, but my grandfather died, and so he kind of stayed in San Francisco to kind of help out my grandmother and that sort of thing. And I understand, like, I'm blessed because, like, if my parents didn't stay together, I don't think I'd be around. You know, my older sister might have been around, but I don't think I would have been around if they decided not to stay with each other later on. So I'm kind of blessed that they got together at that time because I'm alive. But it also kind of makes me question, like, would you have been better off if you went off to college and came back and that sort of thing? There's a lot of those questions. It just, it just, it sucks because, like I said before, it feels like when a divorce like that happens, the parties can kind of quote unquote wash their hands of it, go back to their families, rebuild what they can. Obviously, there's scars and stuff, but the kids are just like, well, shit. Okay, now we got to figure out how to deal with all this. And then also, my dad fell into a depression, and it felt like we had to go and kind of cheer him up a lot of the time by going and hanging out with him, which, you know, we wanted to do, but it almost felt like we were caretaking for him at certain points, you know? Like there was this one Thanksgiving that I guess we not I guess we decided to like get like a turkey from Safeway, or not a turkey, like a chicken from Safeway, and mashed potatoes, and have like a tiny little Thanksgiving at the house with him and my sister and my brother and myself. Like we did that as like a way to like be all together for the holidays because my dad liked making pies during Thanksgiving. He still does. Uh
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. But there were these things that we felt like we needed to do in order to make sure dad was okay, you
And
know?
how do you think it's like obviously, like I mentioned, it affected you in the sense that you didn't want to get married and you didn't want to
Yeah.
have kids, but like, what made you change your decision?
I met you and I
Well,
was
and
like,
aside from me,
but no, that was a big thing. I met someone where I felt like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe this isn't as bad as I think it's going to be. But I mean, there was a lot of hesitation because I'm like, what if it doesn't work out? What if there is an ending? You know, I am super nervous around arguing because in my case, when people argued, people left. So I'm very anxious about those things. And I try not to bring that into my life and into my family because I don't want the same result to happen. Even though I know everyone's different, I understand that every marriage, every group of people are different. You can't help but go back to those things that you experienced as a kid.
you know what I just realized?
What?
And it's not like you obviously told me that part before, but I realized that like when we argue, there are times where you will say, um, like, I'm not leaving anywhere, or like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know.
And I've always thought that you were just reassuring me because when we had that breakup, but now I feel like you reassure me just because.
I almost reassure myself
Mhm.
like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. Like, I'm committed to this. Because, again, no ill will, but it felt like they didn't want to continue theirs. They decided it was too much. And it was like, I'm not going to do that.
Which, if you look at it, I mean, from the outside,
Hmm.
it's better to not have to live in an environment where your parents are fighting all the time. And
Yeah,
as
100%.
humans,
Like,
you want them to
I
be able
remember
to
my
have a better life.
my sister would like scream at them, like, stop arguing, and slam the door because they would argue so much all the time. And it was almost consistent. Like I remember as Stefan would cry because it was like so consistent that they argued. So I mean, I'm happy that they got a divorce. And I'm reiterating, I'm looking at this as like an adult, like having gone through this and seen the other side. And I understand all the variables. I understand like it's better that they got a divorce. Like it's way healthier now. Like I'm very happy where they're at now because they're a lot happier. But you can't undo the damage that has been done. And you can't also say, "Oh, that's in the past, you know, we've moved on from it." Where it's like I that's part of my life. That's part of me growing up, you know? there were many good times, me being very much younger and stuff with my parents, that I enjoyed immensely. Like my dad and mom took us to Disneyland via train, and that was really awesome. Like I remember that. I remember going camping with my dad, which I did well after a little bit after the divorce too. Like I remember even going hunting with him after the divorce. Like we would continue that trend. But it's still like a big part of who I've become, how I interact with the world, and that sort of thing. And you can't take that away. I think people try so hard to quote unquote fix people with that trauma, where it's like, well, look at it this way. It's like, it's just a part of them. And this is who they are with that.
Yeah, but I also think that there's a lot of stuff that could happen through a divorce that could trickle down to which does trickle down to the kids, and then the kids trickle down to their.
Yeah. And I'm very much I want to stop the cycle. Like I'm a very much a cycle stopper
Yeah.
because
And not to toot our own horn, but I do think that we're really good about talking of things that have affected us, and how we are going to, and what we're going to do to make sure we're not putting that on our kids.
yeah,
Like, for
100%.
me, I think I've always been very fearful of like, just naturally I'm a fearful person, and I'm trying really hard to not pass that on to Mia. I don't want her to be fearful.
Yeah.
At least not of the same things that I'm
And
fearful
that,
of.
but then also not acting within that fear of like being overbearing and preventing them from doing things, because maybe you were a wild child growing up and you experienced all these like crazy things and knew all these crazy people, and because of that now you're like, well, I can't have my children go through that. And it's like I said before, you can't protect them from the world. There's no amount of preparation that you can do to prevent them from all the things that could occur to them. All you can do is give them the best tools possible and be like, look, I need you to use your best judgment in situations.
Well, and I also think that a part of a tool to give them is the trust,
Yeah.
to come back to you and tell you, hey, I'm going through the situation and I don't know what to do, or I'm stuck. Because I think when you break that trust and you become overbearing or become controlling,
Hmm.
um, maybe it's fine in that time being, but later on in life, if they find themselves maybe in another kind of sticky situation, they might feel, no, I'm not going to tell my parents because they're going to judge me,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to
I would say an example
ask for
of
help.
that was when I was in high school. Um, I got drunk with my friends. Like it was senior year, and I never really drank or did any drugs in high school. I was very, as they say, straight edge. Very much so. But during senior year, I started to drink a little bit, experiment with that. And I remember I got drunk with my friends over in an area near our house, or near my house. And I remember one of our friends got really, really drunk. Like he was kind of stumbling over, he threw up. He was really, really drunk. And we were all kind of buzzed. And we didn't know what to do. And one of the guys, and I don't even know if I call them friends, they were high school acquaintances. Like I knew them, I hung out with them. But there was one of the guys told us to just be like, put him on the bus and he'll get home. And I was like, I can't do that. Like this guy is literally, he can't even sit up. Like that's crazy. So the only thing I knew what to do was call my mom and be like, hey mom, we're I'm drunk. Like I have a really drunk friend. Can you pick us up and can we take them home? And my mom, and this is why I love her, because she is that woman who's going to be like, "All right, let's figure this out." And she picked us up. We Yeah, I don't know if she picked us up or we were close enough to my house that we walked back to my house. Um it was me, two other guys and two girls. And so the girls were like fixing themselves up in the bathroom, and we were giving the guy water. I think he was like sitting
At your
downstairs
house.
at my house, and then we took them all home and we got him home, and then on the ride back my mom was like, "I'm glad you called me." And I didn't get in trouble for that. She's like, she knew I was in trouble, like this was a bad situation, and I didn't know who else to
And he
turn
also
to.
said like you didn't do it often.
No, I didn't do it often. I was very much a quiet kid. Again, I liked playing my video games. I liked just going to school and going home. I didn't really interact all that much outside of school. I did join the Sea Scouts like senior year because I had a bunch of other friends that did it.
Hmm.
I joined because there was a girl I liked who joined it, and
Yeah, please say the real reason why
yeah,
you joined.
there was a girl I liked who joined it, and I was like, I want to join it because she joined it, so I did. But it was a cool
Charlie was trying to
experience.
get
I did a lot of
so.
things because I liked girls who did them. So
And did the girl like you back?
it was a more complicated situation that we could talk about later.
We hate her.
We,
I stalked her.
it's a more
Wait, did
complicated
I
situation.
stalk her?
It was also high school.
No, I don't think I stalked her.
It was also high
I
school.
think I stalked some other
It was
people.
drama. It doesn't matter. I hope everyone is good in their more adult life.
Well, wherever you are, girl, you're
But
missing out because
long story
he's
short,
a great man.
yes, I do think it's good not to be overbearing to your kids.
Yeah.
Because there is a loss of trust. Obviously, you need to be a parent, and I think your mother had a saying that I really, really enjoyed, which is, I can't be your friend. I have to be your parent.
Yeah, like in those formative years of your life, like I kind of agree with that too. Like I don't to raise a kid is it's very hard, and obviously everyone is going to make mistakes, right? But I do at that point when she would tell me that, I'd be like, ugh, so annoying because all I wanted then was a friend.
Yeah.
And maybe she kind of was a little bit more on the I'm not your friend side when
Yeah.
maybe just needed her to meet me in the middle a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, it's like, yes, it's, um, but I think that there should be an in between. Like, I'm your friend, but I'm also your parent. And as a parent, I need to tell you.
Yeah, or like I'm your parent and I like you. Like obviously I'm gonna do right by you, and I'm gonna try to be someone you can lean on. If anything, if you can't be a friend,
But
obviously.
there's also like just a lot of things that I think my mom, there's a lot of stuff that my mom did that were very admirable because I feel like talking about breaking cycles, she definitely broke cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of other things that she didn't and that have affected me and my siblings a lot.
Like what?
Well, I'll tell you one that she did do. And my mom is one of the second oldest, but the first girl, right? So obviously in a misogynistic Mexico
Yeah.
back in the 70s.
It was like machismo, right? Like
I mean, it's still very prevalent, but obviously still, I'm hoping that now it's a little better. But obviously, imagine my mom and growing up in the 70s in Mexico, very misogynistic, and her being the first woman, the oldest woman.
Yeah.
A lot of the responsibility to take care of her siblings fell on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, again, like you said, we're not bad mouthing our parents or our grandparents for that matter. But I do think that a lot of stuff happened to my grandma that my grandma was almost in a depression without really naming it depression. Like now we can put a word to it and say it was depression what she was going through.
Yeah, a lot of the times you hear the older generation say like that's just the way it was. That's the way it is.
Like
and it's like there's a word for it. There's a word for it.
Like the belief that my great grandma passed down to her kids and my grandma, so to her kids and my mom, was that when you marry forever, and even if that person is treating you poorly, you stick with them. And my grandpa was unfortunately not home all the time.
Mm.
And he really just kind of left all of the responsibility of raising the kids to my grandma. But because my grandma, I think, was going through her own kind of, I would say midlife crisis in a way.
Yeah.
Really the responsibility became my mom's.
Yeah.
So she became an adult at a young age. She stopped going to school because my grandma kept having more kids.
Yeah.
And it was this like vicious cycle of my grandpa coming back from wherever job he was at in a different state or city, um, getting my grandma pregnant and then leaving again for another job, which again, I'm not gonna um, badmouth them, but then it was like another child added to the line of kids that my mom had to raise.
And you're just
And
adding responsibility after responsibility.
yeah,
And
and my
it's
mom is a
crazy.
very like my mom really thoroughly enjoyed going to school, and she had to stop going to school. My mom stopped school at, I think she only went up to 5th or 6th grade. I don't remember.
Mm,
And then she stopped going to school altogether because it was just not, like
yeah.
not possible. And she needed to start working.
Which is a real situation for a lot of people
Hmm.
around the world, where it's like, it's not just that they don't have they essentially don't have the choice to do education because they have to help out with the house, help out with
Hmm.
the livelihood. Like, that's just the reality. And there is a little of spoiledness, a lot of, I think, like, and not all Americans, because I think there are a
Yeah.
lot of Americans that are in that similar situation where they stop school because they need help out. But there's a little bit of that where it's like we
Well,
take
I
school
think
for granted.
education is valued in America
It
more
is.
so than it was. And it was, like, again, talking about in the 70s. Like, obviously,
Hmm.
it's child labor was not seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, so again, my mom became, the caretaker of her siblings. So when my mom married my dad and had her own kids, I'm the third one of uh of four.
Hmm.
Um, I never took care of my little sister because she was very adamant about saying, I birthed my kids, like I'm their mother. Like
Hmm.
I'm not, like my child is not,
Yeah. So
the
she almost stopped the cycle with herself,
yeah,
where she's like, I'm not going to do what my mom did.
I'm not gonna do with what my mom did.
Hmm.
Did. However, my aunt, who's the youngest, who's my mom's sister,
Hmm.
she also has 4 kids. And her oldest daughter, takes care of a lot of the younger kids.
Yeah, because
And because she never had to take care of the, I mean, she was the youngest at
she
that
didn't
point.
experience it.
She didn't experience it.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it's like, and it really messes up a child. Like I can see it in my cousin, how much that affected her. It takes away a little bit of your childhood.
Hmm.
Something
Which,
that she did pass on. Oh, sorry.
well, I mean, I just, it's interesting how there's always this idea of like, oh, childhood, or this time, which is very much a luxury for a lot of the world to
Hmm.
have a childhood. Because a lot of people, like your mom, they start being adults at like, what's fifth, sixth grade? What's that? 7 or 8? No.
6th grade.
Yeah.
It's you're 10, 11.
10, 11. 10, 11, you're like an adult
You're not
now.
even a teenager. You're
Yeah.
still considered a tween.
Yeah. You're not even
You're a
considered like,
child at 10,
you maybe have started, puberty,
maybe.
maybe, but you're considered an adult now because you're working, you're doing adult things. And the idea of having that quote unquote childhood is kind of this weird. I mean, obviously you want it for kids
I
because
mean,
you want that moment of just like carefreeness of being able to imagine and do whatever you want and not have the troubles of the world bother you. Because I think that's like it's a beautiful time that I think a lot of people either want to go back to or wish they had,
for sure. I mean, my mom married at 15
which is
and had
insane.
my sister at 16.
I say that, and I think my grandparents married at a very young age. I don't know if it
Yeah,
was
but
50.
your grandparents.
Yeah,
We're talking about my parents.
that's true. That is very true.
Like that's a whole generation there.
That is very true.
Um, but my mom married at 15, had my sister at 16, and it's so crazy. When I had Mia, I was at her house for that, like the second week after being home. I stayed at her house for a couple of days to get some help,
Hmm.
and I was walking down the hallway to the living room, and she saw me with carrying Mia, and she got emotional because she said, "Oh my God." I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll translate it.
Yeah.
But she said, "Mi Sandrita tiene un bebé." Like my little Sandra has a baby. Because she just, for her, it's like, wow, like I'm a third one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
not
you're
that she didn't
considered
feel that.
like one of the babies.
Yeah. Um, and I was talking to them how hard it was, and we were having a conversation with my aunt the same man I was just talked about, the smallest one, the youngest one. Um, and I was telling them how hard it was and how I couldn't even imagine my mom having to go through that at 16. And she said, I don't know how I did it either. And like I think that was the first time that she took it in, and she was like, I was such a baby
Yeah.
when I had uh,
But
a
you don't
child.
recognize it. I think even when we were at the beginnings of you giving birth to Mia and being new parents at the very beginning, you don't even recognize a lot of that stuff. It is just go, 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 go. And you don't have time. There's no point where you have time to slow down and really observe what's going on. You know, it's very much like, I got to be this, I got to be that, I got to be this, I got to be that, and just kind of constantly going.
Yeah.
And it's like a race and you're running. And then at a certain point, 10, 20 years down the line, you can stop for a second and look back and be like, holy shit,
Hmm.
like that happened. Like
Yeah.
I don't even remember it. I don't even recognize it.
I think because we don't know anything else
Yeah.
sometimes.
It is
In the
very,
case of my parents, they didn't know anything
I
else.
feel like it's like some old, like, it's not old, but it's like, it's a bit of our fight or flight experience, like
Hmm.
reaction,
Hmm.
where it's like, we just got to, you
Hmm.
know? And it's funny because I feel like there is a lot of anxiety with people nowadays because of all the information that we have about things, but you don't recognize how ready you are to deal with things, especially like giving birth, being parents or anything like that, than you actually are. Like
Hmm.
your body will really kind of be like, all right, let's go,
Yeah.
you know? And obviously there's different cases for different people, but it's just an interesting thought.
Yeah. It is kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of things interconnect and kind of fall where they need to fall.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, for me, you asked me what was one thing that she didn't break, and I think is the fear. Um, my mom is also a very fearful person and nervous person, and I think I grew up being very fearful and very nervous to take risks, to do things. Like, this is going to sound so stupid, but I didn't go to science camp when I was in 5th grade because, like, in elementary school, I don't know how schools were in San Francisco, but in the San Jose district, um, all the 5th grade classes at one point during that year, they would take them to science camp.
Mm.
And like, Charlie, it was like not costly, but you, like, most kids had to pay an X amount to, for the trip. I didn't have to pay much because I had, throughout my years in school, I was like that little salesperson. Like, I would be selling chocolates and everything
Oh,
because I just like doing it, right?
yeah.
Um, to the point where I only needed to pay $20 to go to
What?
science camp.
And what did other people have to pay?
100 or
I mean,
whatever.
that's still pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially for my parents, because my parents were not gonna have the extra money. I mean, we lived paycheck,
Paycheck to paycheck.
paycheck to paycheck. So
Yeah.
of course we weren't gonna have the money to, like,
Yeah.
Um, so my mom was like, "You want to like go?" And I was so scared. I was so scared.
Wow.
And I think, and I'm not gonna get into this because this is something that I'm not ready to talk about, but I know where it stems from, that fear. But it also comes with just the fear that I felt like I learned from my mom.
Mm.
Like, I've always felt like my dad and my mom have settled, and I say this with the most respect because yes, they've settled for things, conformed for certain things, and not for others, because they took the biggest risk of their lives coming here,
Mm.
leaving everything behind
Mm.
to give us a better future. That I will never take away. And that's why I'm reluctant to even say that they settled. But I almost feel like that big risk took so much of them
Mhm.
that they sort of became stagnant in a way. Is that the right word? They
I'm
kind of became like just,
Well, I think they got to a point where they made a life, they had a place, they had their daughters, and I don't know if stagnant is the right word. I feel like they achieved what they wanted to achieve in a certain degree.
well, yeah. And I feel like I'm sounding ungrateful maybe, but I promise it's not from
No,
a
I
place
think I
of.
think it's from a daughter looking up to their parents and being like, you could be so much more, sort of thing.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
Like I
like
look up to my parents and I'm like, my mom is so smart
mhm,
and just so kind, and I know that she was made for so much more.
yeah,
Same with my dad is so talented.
he
Like
is.
not only does he have a beautiful voice, but he also is so witty and so funny, and just his charisma is just, like people enjoy spending time with him, and he's again so smart.
Yeah,
Um and I know that they could do so much more, and to see them in a place where they almost are stuck
like stuck in mediocrity, almost like where it's just like
sounds ugly. It sounds, because I feel bad saying that.
no, because I think what it is it feels like the world is not offering them the opportunities that you believe that they are able to take and run with and stuff. And sometimes life is like that, where you kind of are like, life is not letting you go beyond this level. There's like a ceiling that you're not allowed to go above because of, situations in your life.
But at the same time, I feel like I can't ask them for more because they've already done so much that it's like growing up, I obviously have always had a love for theater and
Hmm.
love for the arts and acting specifically and music. And I remember growing up, I knew I wanted to be an actress since I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I only know that because my parents used to work in the fields, specifically like cilantro fields. And my mom used to say that I used to run around the fields because I didn't have a daycare.
Was it only cilantro?
There was other stuff, but I think
It's
it's
funny
tomatoes,
because I have
cilantro.
that like gene that I don't like cilantro. Like I just do not like it. And my grandmother, my abuelita, just does not
I like how
understand
you
me.
just took it.
I'm
I
just
was
saying.
getting
I'm just saying because
emotional.
when you said cilantro fields, I'm like,
It
this is.
took a moment for you to like
It's funny how you ended up with someone who doesn't really like
doesn't
it.
like cilantro. No, but like they were all really working in the fields. Um, and I think it was tomato, cilantro, a bunch of other stuff.
Hmm.
But my mom was telling me specifically of this time. I was 2 years old and I was running through the fields because, again, she would take me to work with her
Yeah.
and my dad. And I would tell people, like, I'm going to be a star. Like,
Oh
I'm going
Jesus.
to, I, and I would like perform. And I'm like, I'm this person. Like, I would pretend I was this like singer and actress. And when we moved here, I remember very vividly performing and dancing and telling my mom like I want to be an actress. Like I want to do that. Like the people on TV, I want to do that.
Hmm.
And I remember my mom telling me that's not a possibility because we're poor. People who are poor never make it on TV. And I'm like, well, that actress made it on TV. She's like, that's a storyline.
Mm.
That's her character. That's not her.
She's almost telling you that to protect you.
For sure. And I don't, but as a child, you take it in and you're like, what? No, I'm going to prove her wrong, right?
Yeah.
And through the years, you have open houses, you have all these like things at school. That's one thing. My mom always made it to her conferences because it was mandatory and she needed to make sure we were progressing. But all the open houses, she never went to. Not mine open houses. She never went to any of
Open
those.
houses or like open mic night or something, or
No, the schools used to have.
is it open
Is it
houses,
open house or is it open school night?
or is it just, was it
Didn't they
like
call them open house? I
like an
might
open
go.
open house feels like there's like a house for sale and you can like go and check it out.
No, but they call them open house like it's a school night, like open
It's like, is it like a talent show? Like you go up and do something? Like you could do like a comedy sketch, you could do.
no, Charlie. It's an open house, meaning like it's like after you start school, you go to.
Maybe it is called open house, but it sounds like it's
Sorry, I
like
have a lot of stuff on my.
no, no, no. It just sounds like, oh, there's like a house up for sale and you can go check it out. Am I crazy for thinking that?
Yeah, school. What's a school open house? They have
So okay, okay, never mind. Then you are right. It sounded like something different, like an
Okay, this
open
is where
house.
it's something that I also have trauma about.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
No, but she would never go to those things. Every time I would perform, she would never go to the performances. And for the longest time, I just always felt very, very sad and like just like she didn't like, not like me. I know she liked me. I'm her kid. But I just didn't feel supported, right?
Mm,
Until I grew up and I realized, when was this woman going to go see me if she never had the time? She literally
yeah.
would wake up, get us ready. We'd run to the bus stop to get us in the bus and on our way to school. And she would run to her bus stop because she didn't have a car and go to work, come back from work, like cook for everyone, you know, be extremely tired because it was a backbreaking job.
Yeah.
Like, when did she have the energy or time, you know? She was there in all the important. She would take us to all of our appointments. She would, she would go to our conferences. But that is one thing that I always felt very sad about growing up, that I'm like, she doesn't care. She doesn't support me.
Yeah, I remember when we did Zoot Suit in college, you
Oh, she didn't go.
yeah, she didn't go and you kind of broke down to me like that she didn't go or like
And
family never went.
you know what's crazy?
And
I
I
didn't,
felt really bad
but you
about
know
that.
what's crazy? I didn't even invite them. So
Mm.
I think when I broke down to you is because I was just kind of letting out like why I didn't even invite them, because I think that I had, you know how they gave you comp tickets, and I
Yeah.
was like, I told you, I was like, here are my comp tickets, you can take them for your family. The
Uh,
only people who went to my performance was my sister and her husband, because I was close to her and she knew I was having it. But with my family, I didn't tell them to go.
yeah.
And when they were like, oh, should we go? I was like, well, I already gave my tickets and it's sold out.
So you were still kind of bitter.
I was very bitter over it. I think at one point, I think the last time that I had cried about it was in high school when I had a performance and I looked out and I didn't see, because I told them to go and I looked out and I didn't see them and I was like, fine, whatever. And then that was the last time I invited them to anything. I did the vagina monologues in college too, and I didn't invite them
Mm.
because I was just so.
I mean that is
So I was very bitter. Now I'm over it. Now I understand why it happened. But going back to the whole thing, I was very just fearful in general. Like, I've grown very fearful about things, and I know where it stems from. Um, Part of what I think, half of why I'm fearful, and then the other half I think is just my mom. I think my mom's always just been a very scared to take risks, scared to of the what ifs, scared like my mom's a great cook. And I've
yeah,
always
she is a
told
great
her, I'm
cook.
like, you should open a catering business. A lot of people have always told her, like, hey, would you make this for us for like our parties and stuff? And she's always said, sometimes she says yes, and most of the time she says no, because she's like, well, what if it doesn't come out good? And then they're going to complain. And it's like, she'd just rather not deal with it.
Mm.
And for me, I'm trying to break that. I'm trying, because I feel like I'm like that sometimes, where I'm like, I can do all these things, but then I'm like, I'd rather not. My whole acting career, I feel like I stopped it because I was like, well, I'm not here where I'm supposed to be here and I'm not there, because I would see everyone else around me having opportunities that I didn't have as a child growing up. Like, everyone around me would be talking about, like, I did this and this, and I went to theater camp, and I did, like, I know
I
these
will
other
say,
persons. And
like, when we were doing theater at San Jose State, and again, it's not like a super named school to do acting
no.
of any kind. It's not like USC or NYU or anything like that. But there was this like idea of like, well, you're competing against kids who've been doing this since X, Y, and Z, and so they kind of put that in your head, which is true. It's true, 100%. But at the same time, it's also about moving to LA and then just doing auditions. That's also a
Yes.
huge part of it, where
Yes.
it's like sometimes you're just there. Like, I was listening to this interview. It was like, if have you heard of the comedian Tom Segura?
Yeah.
So he has a podcast with another comedian, Bert Kreischer, and then Bert wasn't there, so he had another person. He had Quentin Tarantino on. I think the podcast is called Two Bears One Cave. It's a very popular podcast. But I was listening to that, and Quentin Tarantino is essentially talking about his movies, and I think is it Pulp Fiction? It's one of his movies where he gives the role to someone else who's there at who's at like the table read or something like that, because one of the actors couldn't make it or something like that. And he said it's like, well, the guy should have been there. You know, if he really wanted the part, he would have been there. And so I gave it to the other guy who was doing a really good job.
And I
And it's all about time and place with that sort of thing. Yes, you need to have the chops. You need to have the experience. You need to have like the acting confidence, 100%. But sometimes it's just about being in the right place at the right time when it comes to that sort of thing.
and I agree. And I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's all about taking the risk and taking chances and saying yes to things and just going for it and not quitting. I
Yeah.
100%. I quit because in my brain, I was like, I'm not there. I didn't do all those things.
Mhm.
And you know what was talking to me in my brain? That little word my mom said at the beginning of like, you can't do this because we're poor. And
Yeah.
I thought if I go to LA to try to do this as a career, I don't have the means to do it.
Yeah.
I don't, and again, I know that these are all excuses, but this is what was going through my brain.
Yeah, you're looking at it like through a different lens.
So not
almost.
only was I feeling like I don't, like financially, I can't afford it.
Mhm.
I can't do that. I don't have that privilege, right? As an excuse. But I was also using another excuse that this is actually a big part of what a lot of things that I think hold me back is I feel like I have some sort of responsibility to provide for my parents,
Mm.
to give back a little bit of what they have given me.
Mhm.
And I felt like if I was to do that and leave them and go to LA and try to find my dreams, and if I didn't do anything of it, because there is no guarantee that you
Mhm.
can get any money whatsoever, that I would leave my family stranded and that I was not going to be able to provide for them.
Yeah.
So I decided that I needed to let go of that to feel like I could provide for them. Now, are those excuses? 1,000%. Is that the right mindset? No, it's not. But it's that fear.
Yeah.
That fear that I grew up with that
Yeah.
I need to learn how to let go.
Yeah.
Not only for myself, but also for Mia.
I mean, it's a lot to understand that and to kind of like and a lot of people don't get there. You know, a lot of people still live with those cycles. They still live with that fear. They go on with their lives not understanding this is what's holding you back. And it takes a lot for you to step back and be like, "Oh, this is what's happening." You know? It's yeah.
And to be honest, I feel like this is like a conversation that we can talk and talk and talk about because there's so many things that I think, have happened to you, have happened to me that obviously play a part in who we are now and how, and we have to learn how to deal with the situations, but also heal from it because it's all
Yeah.
about healing and learning how to live with it.
And learning how to let go and just be like, that's not going to be my
Which
life. We're not going to do that.
now in my present day, I know I have a lot of work to do, but if there's one thing that I've been really proud about and I started kind of feeling this way and thinking about it this way, and honestly, thanks to your mom.
Mm-hmm. She's a
Um,
wonderful woman.
she is, but your mom had always talked to us about living in the present, and
Mm-hmm.
I took that to heart. And at the beginning of 2022, I told myself I'm not going to have any year resolutions. I'm going to try to live in the present. Obviously that doesn't count of like having goals or whatever. I'm talking about choosing every day to enjoy and see the little things. And is that easy? No, it's not. It's been hard. But I feel like in these almost 2 years that we're kind of in the tail end of 2023, I feel like that has really helped me with Mia because I started 2022 with that mentality. Then I got pregnant. Then I was like, okay, live my pregnancy. Then
Mm-hmm.
Mia was born, and being a parent is really difficult, obviously, as we've talked about it before. But now with Mia and the age that she is right now, where she's learning so many things, when I'm frustrated and I have my moments where I'm like, Mia, it's okay. Don't be crying.
Yeah.
I stop and I think, she's a child. Of course she's going to be crying. If she's crying because there's probably
Yeah, there's
something
a
that's bothering
reason.
her. She's, that's her only way of communication. And then I stop to think, she's never going to be this little again.
Mm-hmm.
Today, she's doing these things. Tomorrow, I don't know. She might be learning something new and then I missed it. Like for a second there, she was saying hola often, and then now she only says hi. You know, like all those little things, and it's like
She says hi, Daddy.
oh my gosh, she's like obsessed. Um, so yeah, so I feel like that has helped me, and I think by living in the present, I'm trying to be less fearful of things, but also trying to figure out a way how to deal with them.
Yeah.
So
100%.
obviously, I think we should probably have another episode where we even talk more about
Yeah.
this and other
What?
topics. But
Oh,
um,
we got to start. So, but let's wrap this up real quick with a new segment that
yeah,
I
we're
like
so
to,
excited.
just to end it on a happier note.
Yes,
This
let's
new
end it on a
segment,
happy note.
it's called "He's Got the Coffee, She's Got the Tea," which I am drinking a little coffee right
And
now.
I should be drinking some tea. Which one did you make me today? Oh, ginger turmeric.
Ginger turmeric.
Which ginger turmeric is really good. Thank you for making this because this is going to help me for.
Yeah.
The-
This segment is all about a little, I guess, gossipy, a little
about the
cheese
chisme.
meh.
You know what we should have? Because
What?
Charlie's been. Sorry, I can't. You put it too far. Charlie's been so funny. He's always said like, oh, every time he talks about chisme, he's always like, we should have cheese or.
Yeah, because I know chisme means gossip in Spanish, but it's like chisme. It sounds like cheese. I mean, like we should have
always
some
wanting to make like
have some crackers with this chisme. You know what I'm saying?
So wait, but do you have any chisme for me? Like celebrity chisme?
Celebrity chisme?
You're the one who came up with the segment, and you don't have chisme for me?
I mean, I guess the only thing that I've kind of like looked at is there's like this interview that I've seen a little bit with Tom Holland about his alcohol addiction.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I've only seen like segments of it, like because I've gone through like the YouTube shorts or whatever, and it's popped up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's the only thing that
What is it?
Essentially, he's like, I guess, having an interview with someone, and the topic of his alcohol addiction came up because I think for a little bit he was kind of drinking a lot and stuff. And I remember there was another interview where he really he delved deep into it, where he was like, he was kind of nervous because it's like, am I addicted to alcohol? Because I drink a lot, I drink all the time. And he gave himself like little benchmarks to hit, like, well, if I don't have alcohol for like 2 months, I should be fine or whatever. And within those 2 months, I think he was like really having a hard time. And so he extended it to 6 months to a year and stuff. And I mean, it takes a lot to get out of that. A lot of people don't get to that point or don't have the ability to have that.
Or even the ability to think, am I addicted to this?
Exactly. I resonated with that because that's how it was like for me to kind of like stop smoking, was like I would give myself little benchmarks to try to hit, like, okay, well, I'll take 2 weeks off and it should be fine. But those 2 weeks I'm like, oh, I really want to smoke. I really want to do this right now. And then I would try to extend it to like a month to 2 months and stuff. And it's hard.
I think it's so crazy though that like I honestly didn't even expect it from him to feel
I
like he
didn't.
had an alcohol addiction.
But it goes back to like everyone has a vice. Everyone's going through something. Like nobody's perfect. And I think we get lost in that, especially with the social media, Instagram, YouTube headspace, where you see these people and you create this idea that they're perfect,
Mm-hmm.
You create the idea that a celebrity or someone you see all the time has just their shit together. They're making money. They're successful in our society.
Mm-hmm.
They know what's going on, when that's not true. I mean, I guess another little chisme is like, didn't Ariana Grande like cheat on her husband?
I don't know. I just know she got divorced.
She got divorced,
They
but
filed for divorce.
But weren't there cheating allegations?
There were cheating allegations because he said that she was cheating on him with.
But
her
didn't
co-star.
she actually cheat beforehand? Wasn't there?
I don't know.
Oh, that's what I heard, and I'm just like, well, there you go.
I'm gonna look this up next time. You need to look this up if you're gonna bring it up.
I will bring.
But I have some chisme.
Okay, bring
this
up
is football.
Bring
world.
up the tea.
This is the NFL. Can we have like a little like NFL the little song, little jingle?
Sports Center.
Can you at least do it?
I think it's I don't know if it's Sports Center, but I know there's like da-na-na, da-na-na. That's like oh
no,
that da-na-na, no, that's the final countdown.
Anywho,
I'll try to figure it out.
We all know last week we talked about how Trey Lance was going to be he was not quarterback 2. Well, then during the week we found out, literally the next day we found out, I think he got traded to the
Yes.
Cowboys. Well, but that's
Yes.
not the chisme.
Really?
Chisme is that they asked my boy Jimmy G what he thought about it, and his response to it was juicy.
Wait, what'd he say? I don't even know this.
He said that it was a weird thing and that some weird things happened in the San Francisco quarterback room. And here, actually, I should bring up the direct quote, because if there's one thing I
That's the
hate
Mr. Kyle Shanahan
and I have
right
a
there.
pet peeve about, is like when people say and they're quoting, but it's not the real quote. And I don't like to put words in someone's mouth.
That's so. I mean, the fact that he got traded to the Cowboys is crazy still, because I feel like they haven't given that boy a chance. They never gave him a chance.
No,
You know,
no.
he was injured. I understand that, but it's like, bro. But you know what I did hear about that is the Cowboys took Trey to light a fire under Dak
Okay, this is what he
Prescott.
said. Hold on.
But you know why? Do you know why the Cowboys took him? This is what I've heard.
What?
To light a fire under Dak Prescott's ass. To
Do
be
you-
like,
But do we think Dak should just retire?
Dak has been with the Cowboys for so long.
So he should retire.
But he's not that old.
How old is he?
I don't know his exact age, but I
How
don't.
old is Dak Prescott?
He is not that old.
I think I went Dak.
Does it say? No?
30.
He's not that
No.
old.
He looks old.
That's what the NFL does to you.
Well,
But
hold on, can I play this?
but essentially what that is like, well, if you're not going to be giving us, Super Bowl wins, we got this other young kid who's going to take your spot.
Okay, well, can I play this?
Yes, play that.
Hold on, let me raise the volume for this.
Make of the Trey Lance trade to Dallas.
Weird situation. Been a lot of weird situations over there in San Francisco. Just to leave it at that. But I'm happy Trey got another shot, man.
How do you think San Francisco's handled those quarterback situations?
How do you think they've handled them?
See, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
What do you make of the Trey Lance?
It's a nice way to put it.
Dude,
is a nice way to put it.
That's crazy.
So obviously the comments were like going insane about this. People were like, "Oh, he's just bitter. Oh, like that's why we like let him go."
Look,
whatever.
I'm
but this is my take, and you can take, and then you
Okay,
finish it with your
okay,
take.
go,
But
go,
this is
go.
my take. He's not wrong. I love the 49ers, and I am a 49er gal. But I think we can all agree that there's some weird thing happening with the quarterbacks and the Niners. I mean,
Yeah.
like, why do they keep getting injured?
Yeah. I'm agreeing with you. Like I'm a diehard 49er fan, but it seems like it's the one position we can't figure out. That it's just either it just feels like whomever we have there isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they get injured. Like it feels like it's a position that just never gets figured out. We have great running backs, we got great wide receivers,
We have
great
a
tight
defense.
great defense, great tight end, but quarterback, which is kind of like the biggest part, it's the guy throwing the ball. We can't get a guy in there. I mean,
So-
Brock Purdy might be the answer.
I know. I was
but
gonna say.
who?
So we're gonna see this season with Purdy and see if is he gonna break
And
the
Sam
quarterback
Darnold.
curse of the 49ers. I hope he does. But for all you NFL fans out there who want to comment below and let us know what you actually think, no one's probably gonna comment because no one watches this. But maybe later on, maybe years when this makes it, and then like we'll have people being like, "Oh, you said this," and they'll like.
Please do that.
But
We would love that.
if you just have an opinion, even if you're not a sports fanatic, even if you don't even care about football, just let us know what you think. Like,
Yeah.
even lie about it, but leave us a comment because it's fun. And
Like always, like, comment, and subscribe.
yes, I think that's pretty much that pretty much closes it.
Yeah, I think
am
so.
definitely Team Purdy, Team Sam Darnold, Team Jimmy G. Even if he's in the Raiders, I support him and I support Trey Lance because I just
Support the players, not the franchises.
I don't know Sam Darnold as much as I feel like I've gotten to know the other people.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a pretty
As
medium.
I've gotten to know the other people, like I know them personally. I know all their lives. Okay.
Well, yeah, that brings us to the end of our podcast. We will give you updates because this coming weekend, we have our family draft for our family
Oh yeah,
football.
we're drafting. That's gonna be.
That's going to be a crazy event. We'll bring you updates next
We'll
episode.
let you know how crazy it was.
But love you all.
I think
Thank
there's
you
gonna be some people who are
again.
gonna drop out of this whole family.
They better
fantasy.
not. Come on. It's one season. It's not even a full
My
year.
money is on the Febrace. Sorry, Febrace. Your guys.
Calling them out.
No, they were literally like your Aunt Nellie was like, I'm dropping out.
No,
It's too
don't
late.
drop out.
But anyway,
But,
we're excited. So
again,
thank you so much.
Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank
See
you
in the next
guys.
episode. Also, shout out to Stevie. He still watches our episodes. Love you,
Oh.
Stevie.
Bye.